My name's Lisa McAdams, I'm 54 and I've been in Australia since 2001. Everything I do started with a badge that a worker gave me when I was doing art therapy. The badge said, "Safety in the home is everybody's right." I run a company called Safe Space Workplace, which educates businesses and government on how to support people going through domestic violence and how to recognise, respond and refer. And that comes from a history of working in corporate myself whilst dealing with domestic violence. It's because I ended up losing my corporate career and having 2 children and no wage to raise them. So my big thing is to get people out of domestic violence without being sidetracked into poverty. And I think a lot of it is also the healing. If you can give back, it makes a meaning to what you've been through. I didn't have any financials in my name. I couldn't even get a library card because none of it matched, because we'd got married, but he wouldn't give me my passport so I could change it. So financially, I did not exist in this country. I was on a bridging visa because I was pregnant and couldn't have the x-rays to get permanent residency, and he wouldn't sign the documents for Medicare. So I was pregnant without Medicare, but luckily the midwife recognised me from having my son. And she said, "Oh, we'll sort it out later." But I wonder if English hadn't been my first language and I couldn't communicate, would she have understood why? It's difficult, but I think we've also got to start recognising for culturally and linguistically diverse and Indigenous people, it's far worse. And I think we need to keep including everybody. Generational abuse is my parents abused me, their parents abused them, children's father's family was the same. So when I married him, I didn't know it was not normal. I didn't know that you could live in relationships with people and not get beaten and put down. I thought that was perfectly normal. Abusive families are, what goes on in the house stays in the house. They don't want people to know. Every instinct was people should mind their own business, but instead of telling social workers to mind their own business, I was seeking them out and saying, "Help me." And when my son was 2, I literally realised I did not have any skills to make him stay in bed without beating him, because that's how I'd been taught. And then I went to family therapy and literally learned to parent from the ground up. But it took hard work. Like, if I go really quiet, you can see they're like, "Okay, Mum, sorry, you mean it now." So it's taken a lot of love to say to them, that's not who I am or what I mean. Well, and sometimes my daughter's so feisty. It's good. She does, she knows she's worth something and is worth being treated well. But I don't think many people realise how long-term it is turning it around and getting your confidence back. Letting the wrong people in and keeping the wrong people out. And it's taken a lot of mistakes, a lot of trusting. I learned that if a friendship goes really quick and there's real chemistry, that it's not healthy. Do you know what I mean? A normal friendship builds. And like, one of my best friends now is my neighbour. But she's been my neighbour for 7 years, and we were always good neighbours, but it took COVID for us to become friends. There's that respect. It's like we share a veranda. We literally go round and knock. And it's learning your boundaries and that it's okay to have boundaries. Letting the wrong people in and keeping the wrong people out. And it's taken a lot of mistakes, a lot of trusting, but also then having the strength to say, I have the right to walk away from this friendship. It's not healthy for me. And abusive people don't like that. It upsets them quite a lot. Yeah, it's sticking with the discomfort that you feel is good for you. Keeping pushing forward, even if you're going to make mistakes, but not sticking to that mistake. That's a lot of the reason people stay in abusive relationships, because you're like, I've invested 10 years, I need to turn this around. It's sort of fun and scary getting to know yourself, to be yourself, and that accepting that I'm not for everybody, and I don't need to be. I don't need to keep changing myself to fit in. I went out with 2 abusive people that both like Formula One, and I remember being up in the middle of the night. Suddenly I just thought, this is really boring, and just went to bed. But I'd been so indoctrinated that that's what I like. oh, I've spent years watching this, but I don't have to spend years more convincing myself that was a good idea. I wanted to get back to where I was, but I'm like, do I really want, like, to have the money and the prestige I had in my career? I was working 18 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I just stopped and I thought, do I even want that? You know, like I wanted to move to a bigger house, and I thought, why? I like my house and I love my neighbour. I could do all that, work all those hours, move to a house where I don't like my neighbour. And it suddenly made me stop and realise, actually, today's okay. It might not be what I want in 5 years, but it's taken, it's 16 years this year since I call it Freedom Day, because I cut all my family off at that time. Like, there were times where I hoped my mum would be different or my dad would be different and let them back in. But at that point, I did not tell a soul in my family that I was in a refuge. Nobody knew. No one knew how to contact me. And I think when governments say, you know, we're going to put money into it, they need to also put money into the structures that support people, because so many go back because financially it's just not viable to stay away. Do you know what I mean? Just put the structures in place. And, you know, like for Centrelink, I would love for there to be a 2-year, you've left and then we'll talk. But it's not, and it's already, like, for me, I didn't even know what Centrelink was for. I was Centrelink and I was trying to get on disability for mental health, and the answer was, no, you'll be better soon. So, and still now you feel like, will people take me seriously if I actually put out there and say I've got mental health problems, I have PTSD. If I get too stressed, I will disassociate. But even it's only now I'm starting to think, maybe people won't work with me. But really, it's obvious who could come out of that and not have deficits. You know, like a workplace could have a safety bag for a woman. It's where they've got a copy of their passports, their children's passport, bank accounts. People leave and they don't exist. So if you offer them working leave, which means they get paid, they go, they get an office, they get a computer that's safe, a phone that's safe, and, you know, don't presume safety. And for anybody going through it, I would say, don't listen when people say it's not that bad, because you know, and keep asking, whether it's the police, you know, keep asking until you get the help you need, because leaving is dangerous. But let the staff know that you're there, you know, like little things, even if they're, because some people don't leave and some people it's the right decision to not leave. You know, a lot of people stay because of the children, because if they get 50% custody, they're not there to keep the children safe. So when people say leave, there's people I know that I would not advocate that they leave. I get completely why they stay. And that's important to understand. You don't know how to help them. And there's a push to say that you escape. Because if you said, why doesn't she just escape? It puts a different lens on leaving. And there's a push to say that you escape. Because if you said, why doesn't she just escape? It puts a different lens on leaving. In offering support, just, you know, they can change shifts. And just something as simple as lending them a phone that isn't theirs, isn't bugged, to make some calls. Lend them a computer that can't be tracked. In researching your leaving or your rights or whatever, and your mind's clear, isn't yours to own. And, you know, if you don't know who's safe in your network, find a safe way to reach out to 1-800-RESPECT. They will never tell you to leave. Any of the helplines, they won't tell you to leave. They will not tell you what to do, but they will help you make sense of the absolute mental manipulation that is abuse and what's going on in your relationship. And even understanding that it's not your fault can be a game changer.